This is the Barricade Extreme HD modular front bumper, and it is available for all 2019 through 2021 Silverado 1500s. Now, you should be checking out the Barricade for your Silverado if you'd like to go with a somewhat affordable off-road inspired option here that will deliver better approach angle, a burly steel construction, and included LED lighting, all for right around that low $800 price point. Now let's get into our list of features here with the Barricade, and first things first, I just really dig the look of the Barricade. Something about the angular steel build working with the front end of that newer Silverado, I think results in a very simple approach, but one that does complement the lines of those newer Silverados rather well. On top of that, I really dig the low profile nature of the modular HD here, which basically prevents this thing from looking out of place once installed. Doesn't stick out too far or anything like that, which can happen sometimes in the category with some other brands. Now, appearance aside, let's talk functionality because there is a lot going on here, starting with the angled ends that we mentioned earlier, delivering what is called more approach angle off-road. That's gonna be big here if you go off-road with your newer Silverado, but a side effect of that will also be more wheel and tire clearance for owners who have went to a bigger tire, maybe an off-road tire, and you want a little bit more clearance when you're turning left to right. Well, those angled ends also help with that. Now, finally, on the list of features, the modular does include LED lighting pre-installed for you here on the sides, but it also makes room for additional auxiliary lighting if you want to add it. For instance, this massive opening here will make home for either a 20 or a 30-inch light bar of your choosing. They do include some brackets for that, but if you want to forego the lighting altogether, they do include a cover for that opening as well, which does result in a very clean look. Now, moving into construction, and the Barricade will offer a very heavy-duty, cold-formed 5/32 plate steel build that will certainly be able to handle some abuse both on or off-road. Now, that steel has been finished off in a 2-stage epoxy powder coat to keep things looking good for many years to come and obviously prevent any corrosion on that steel. Now, the bumper does include the mesh that we talked about here in the middle, but they've also included things like a license plate bracket. You also have holes cut out or pre-drilled for your proximity sensors, in addition to being able to still retain the use of a tow hook up front, which is always a nice little thing to point out. Finally, Barricade kicks in all of the necessary hardware, everything needed to get the bumper actually installed, and they even kick in a wiring harness to work with the LED fog lights here to get you up and running. All right, let's talk price point here with the Barricade, and it's gonna land you in that low $800 range, which when you compare this to other off-road bumpers, certainly is going to be pretty affordable overall, especially when you start comparing this to other bigger brand name companies like ADD or Deviate, for instance, both of which have amazing bumpers, don't get me wrong, but those are gonna cost you hundreds, if not thousands more at the end of the day. So if you're looking to modify the bumper on your newer Silverado, but without breaking the bank, the Barricade stuff is definitely worth a look. All right, last but not least, let's talk installation. And the site's gonna call this a strong 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter here. And I would say at least a couple of hours to get the factory bumper removed, the new Barricade in place, and get those fog lights wired up for the very first time. Emphasis on the strong here, guys. While the bumper itself isn't terribly heavy, it is absolutely gonna be helpful to have a second set of hands with this install to help you hold the bumper in place while somebody else gets back and tightens up the hardware for the brackets. But regardless, to give you a better idea of how this one might go down at home, let's throw it out to the shop for our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, ratchet, 10 and 17 millimeter wrenches, 15 millimeter ratcheting wrench, clip remover tool, scissors or diagonal cutters, an extension, the included Allen wrench, 10, 13, 15, 16, and 18 millimeter sockets, 4 millimeter Allen socket, T15 Torx socket, and some zip ties and zip tie clips. What's up, guys? Today we're installing a front bumper on our Silverado. First, we're gonna watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory bumper, and then I'll meet you back here for the install.
First step for the uninstall, we have to pop our hood. We're gonna get off our top radiator shroud. Now grab a panel removal tool. We're gonna pop off these push pin clips. There's a couple straight across the front, and then we'll wrap it right back at the top end there. All you have to do is pry up on the middle section. go up underneath, and pull it out in one piece. Repeat that for all of them here. Okay, now we're going in the back. All right, from there you can lift this guy off. At the top of the grill, there are 4 10mm bolts holding it on. Grab your 10 socket. I'm gonna use an impact gun, get these off. Next up, we can start popping our grill off. You wanna grab a panel removal tool. I'm gonna use a plastic one instead of the metal one I was using before, just so I don't scratch any of our paint or our headlight glass. I'm gonna go into this corner here. You'll start to hear a pop here as well. Just like that. Repeat that on the other side. And we'll pop up the top, just like that. All right, so you want to lift up on the tabs at the top end, make sure that's disconnected. All right, pop your grill off and set it aside. Next up, we're in the wheel well here. You want to grab a T15 Torx bit. We're going to remove 5 of these screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 is deeper in, and 5's up a little higher. All right, repeat that for the other side once you get all 5 of these guys out. Next up, we have the vehicle up in the air just to make it a little easier to see. We're basically taking off this bumper bracket. Now, I folded back the wheel well liner that we just unbolted to make it easier to see, because that's also how you can get to it from the outside of the vehicle if you're not crawling underneath. Grab a 15 socket. We're gonna get those 2 bolts off of this bumper bracket and 1 on the side. All right, and then this one down here. All right, repeat that on the other side. All right, so next up, while we have this up in the air, we're gonna get this 1 10mm bolt off. It's just to the inside of the bracket we just took off there and a little bit lower. Grab a 10 socket and get it off, and then repeat that on the other side. All right, so next up, we're in front of the vehicle. Where the grill used to be, there's this big rubber panel. If you go to these 2 bolts on each side, so right now you're looking at the passenger side, and you flip this guy open, or down at least, you can expose an 18mm bolt staring straight up at you. Grab a longer extension, an 18 deep socket, and an impact gun, go straight down onto the bolt, and remove it on both sides. All right, you may need to stick your hand down there just to grab the bolt once it's loose. Repeat that on the other side. All right, once you repeat that on the other side, we're basically doing the same thing, flipping up this rubber flap to expose that 18mm bolt. Once you get that off on both sides, the bumper will be free, so make sure you have a hand on it to support it or a helping hand with a friend. Okay, again, repeat on the other side, hold onto your bumper, and we can pull it off. All right, what I like to do is just put my hand right in that spot where that last bolt came out, pull the bumper straight back and off. With the bumper out of the way, let's take the frame plates off at the end of the frame there, grab a 15mm socket and get these 3 guys out.
So now before we start assembling our new bumper, I'm gonna get our wiring out of the way first while we got a little more room up here. So up here, we've got our 2 terminal connectors that are gonna go to our battery. We've got the 2 connectors for our lights that are gonna go down towards the front bumper. And then we've got our switch that's gonna run over towards the driver's side into the cabin. Now I'm gonna start out over on our battery terminals. We're gonna have to pop this cover off for our positive. So press this tab, and then lift up. Now on our positive wire, we have an inline fuse. So I'm gonna pull that out now. That's just gonna cut power to this whole harness. And then once we have everything hooked up and ready to go, we'll pop that fuse back in at the end. So now I'm gonna take a 13mm socket and loosen up the nut on the positive. I'm gonna drop my positive onto that terminal. Thread that nut back on and tighten it down. And then I'm gonna loosen up the nut on my negative with a 10mm socket. Put my negative down, thread that nut back on, and tighten it down. And I'm just gonna run my wire out back here and then reinstall my cover. So now we need to run our 2 connectors for the lights down towards the ground. So I'm gonna run it behind our hood prop, down into the fender behind this bracket. We've got a hole into the headlight bucket, and then we can drop it straight to the ground. So now we need to run the wire for our switch over towards the driver's side to run through a grommet in the firewall. So I'm gonna be doing that with these zip tie clips. We'll just peel the double-sided tape backing off. We can stick it down underneath of the cowl here, run a zip tie through it, and secure our wire. And we keep it up out of the way, pretty invisible, and out of the way of anything moving or hot. So I'm gonna put the zip tie through the clip, get my wire on, get my zip tie loosely on there, and then I'll peel that backing off. And I'm just gonna stick it down underneath of the cowl, tighten down my zip tie, and then take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off the excess of that zip tie. And I'm just gonna do a couple more of those across the cowl. So now we're gonna take our switch and pass it through this grommet right behind our coolant overflow. So you gotta kind of press in on the tab on the side and push it back, or you can poke a hole through the rubber boot if you would like to. So I'm just gonna kind of make a gap and shove it in. So now we're just gonna pull that switch through from that grommet. I'm gonna run this back behind the brake pedal. I'm gonna mount this up and then I'm gonna pull some slack. I'm gonna tuck it behind the carpet and then get it behind this side panel. And then I'm just gonna mount it like down here at the bottom of the dash. So peel that backing off. Stick it down wherever you'd like. Now I'm just gonna tuck all that excess wire back behind the carpet. And now we know it won't get in the way of our gas or brake pedals. And now we can move on to assembling our bumper. So now we're ready to start assembling our new front bumper. First thing we want to do is fold out our wings. These are on a hinge. So we'll open those up. We have a couple bolts that we'll install, and then we need to tighten down the hinge bolts on those wings. So now take your bolts with lock washer and flat washer and thread those into the threaded holes. Tighten those down with a 16mm socket. And then we're gonna use a 16mm socket and 17mm wrench for the hinge bolts. Do that same thing on the other side. Next, we're gonna install our center grills. We've got two smaller ones that are gonna go all the way on the outside. And then our big one that goes right in the middle. And then we're using our combo bolts and flange nuts on all of these tabs. Now grab a 4mm Allen socket and a 10mm wrench and tighten all of those down. Next, we can start installing our top filler piece. So we're gonna line up those holes. We're using our Allen head bolts with a flat washer going down through the top, and then we've got a flat washer and a nut for the bottom side. And then tighten those down with a 4mm Allen socket and 10mm wrench. Now we're going to do the same thing on the sides. And tighten that down with that 4mm Allen socket and 10mm wrench. Do the same thing on the other side. Now, we don't have any parking sensors in our factory bumper, so I'm gonna be using this plug. You're just gonna line it up and press it in. If you do have parking sensors to switch over, you'll take your parking sensor out of your factory bumper. There's a little rubber ring around the front of the sensor, around the part that'll sit in this hole. You're gonna take that off and you're gonna put this foam washer on there. And then you're gonna push that sensor in from the back. You're gonna put this spacer on the back of that up against it, and then this cap, and then that's gonna push onto the two posts surrounding your parking sensor. Now, like I said, we don't have those, so I'm just gonna line up our plug and press that down into place. And you can do that same thing or the same thing with the parking sensors on the other three holes. Now next, we're gonna mount our license plate bracket. So we've got our two holes in the back of the bracket that are gonna line up with these two holes down here. We're gonna be using our Allen head bolts with a flat washer and then a flat washer and nut on the other side. I'm gonna put that through. Now take your 4mm Allen socket and 10mm wrench to tighten that down. Next, we're going to reinstall our grill. So line up all your clips and press it into place. Now we're going to reinstall our upper grill bolts, and then we can get our rad cover installed. Take a 10mm socket and tighten these down. Now drop your rad cover back into place and reinstall all your push clips. Now you can slide your handle back on, thread in the 2 screws, and tighten those down with the T15 Torx socket. So now I've got a buddy here to help me lift this bumper up into place. We're going to be reinstalling our 3 factory bolts on each side into the threaded holes in our frame horns. Now underneath the bumper, take a 15mm ratcheting wrench to tighten down your bolts. Do the same thing on the other side. So now I'm going to plug in the connector from my light. And I'm going to bunch up all of the excess wire. I'm going to zip tie that together, and then I'm going to zip tie it up here. Cut off the excess of that zip tie. Then we're going to take another zip tie and I'm going to put it through a couple holes. Get all my wires through there. I'm going to connect my zip tie first and then I can position it. So I'm just going to put it all right up top. Tighten down my zip tie and cut off the excess. And then repeat that process on the other side. Now we can reinstall our side pieces. So line up all your clips and just pop it into place. And now we can just reinstall those 3 screws through our fender liner. Take your T15 Torx socket to tighten these down. Do the same thing on the other side. Now, last thing we need to do is just hop back up into the engine bay and reinstall our inline fuse. And just put that cap back on it and tuck it down out of the way. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Barricade Extreme HD modular front bumper with LED DRL for your 2019 to 21 Silverado 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.